It is the final word daily, Sri Lanka Australian Daily to be precise. Day one of the second test match. Adam Collins and Bharat Sundaresan back with you on the roof for cbussuper.com.au. Get your super sorted out in 2025. More about them later. Daz, tell us about day one in 30 seconds.
Dimuth Karunaratne and his final test started off well with Dinesh Chandimal at the other end after all the presentations that happened before it. And then Nathan Lyon struck. And then Nathan Lyon struck again. And then Sri Lanka were in trouble. The collapse was on 4 for 37, 6 for 150. It looked like it was all over. Then the Mendes struck. Ramesh Mendes joined Kusal Mendes. And they batted and batted and batted, facing nearly 100 balls. And then Mitchell struck with the second new ball. And then somehow Sri Lanka survived. And are still out there. They have one more wicket to lose.
They do. 9 for 229 at the close. Starc went bang bang. He was on a hat trick. He came ever so close to collecting that elusive hat trick as well. The middle session you described nicely. 4 for 57 Australia took. Karunaratne, Matthews, Kamindu and Dhananjaya. 3 of those 4 came as a result of Steve Smith bowling changes. Nasanka, who was out sweeping early in the day, and in the final session, Kuhneman got a couple of wickets as well, including the important man Chandimal, top scored on 74. Ramesh Mendes put on a partnership of 65 with Kusal Mendes, who's still in the middle at 59 overnight, and they're 9 down. So 1 to get for Australia tomorrow, 3 for Starc, 3 for Lyon, 2 for Kuhneman. Let's get into it. Why don't we start with the debut of Cooper Connolly, the 471st Australian men's test cricketer. There was a little bit of consternation about this, not as much as I thought there might be. There was a little bit of like undeserving, baggy green, etc., etc. But this was a sensible selection on the basis of the inputs that they had into their decision-making process. Baz, they knew and they told us very clearly that this pitch, and we saw it with our own 2 eyes, was going to have not a blade of grass on it, it was going to spin big, it was a test that was going to speed up, and they wanted to lengthen their batting lineup because they felt relaxed about the fact that they had the resources to take their 20 wickets. On the available evidence, it'll get no better to bat than this. No. They've already got 9 of the 20 they require. They have got the extra batting in Connolly. I can't really see why people can be too concerned about the rationale behind this.
No, I mean, you just had to look at the surface, not today, not yesterday, but 3 days ago.
3 days ago.
And
could have played on it.
You definitely could have played on it, and it still would not have been easy to bat on. I mean, don't go by the fact that Sri Lanka managed to bat 90 overs. Yes, the Australians didn't get as much out of it as they thought they would, and the new ball didn't really do as much as they thought it would, but still it was a pitch, and it comes down to how team managements and captains and coaches read conditions, and they've been here before. We were right here, and they read this as being very similar to the pitch we got for the first test last time around, where Sri Lanka made a similar amount of runs in their first innings, though they were bowled out on day 1 on that occasion. Here they were nearly bowled out, and then they made the call that, look, we will not need too many overs. Things are going to go very quickly. If not in the first innings, then definitely in the second innings, and we can go in with the 3 specialist bowlers, considering we have Connolly, who we think on the basis of what they've seen of him in Dubai, bowling in the nets, working with Vittori, working with Nathan Lyon, working with Matt Kuhneman, like Dan Vittori said, and also here in the nets, and I've seen a lot of his bowling in the nets as well. He's got control, and he bowled a few overs, and there was decent control. Yep. He seems to know what he's doing. You're not talking about a complete outsider here in terms of, yes, he's bowled only 96 balls in first class cricket, but he's played other formats, and he's worked with the guys who matter, which is this coaching group and team management, and they felt his bowling, even if it doesn't require too many overs, will be handy, and it was handy.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, this could have been Glenn Maxwell playing this
easily.
week.
If he was there, he would play. Yeah.
That's right. If Maxwell had been in the squad. So had things been different in relation to the World Test Championship final qualification, perhaps? I mean, but that's not the case. So in terms of the like-for-like they brought on this trip, the player they brought on this trip to fill that role, that is Connolly. So, it's one of those situations where it's sad that it's not Glenn, but you can't begrudge a guy getting a debut in these circumstances. I personally thought it was going to be for Bo Webster rather than Todd Murphy. I think Murphy is stiff, but they wanted to keep the extended batting lineup, coming back to point A, which is that they wanted to have depth in the list on the basis that this track could end up being a complete nightmare.
And just before we move on from that, I was just looking up because there's a crow right on this pole. And even though I'm not a religious person, where I come from, they believe that the crows are our ancestors. And one of my ancestors was making a very strong point about Glenn Maxwell as well. Like, while we were like, the crow was, he or she was very loud and agreed with us. So I just wanted to make that point.
Maxwell for Australia. The dream lives with us and with the crow sitting on top
of my ancestor.
Of the Sri Lankan flagpole, an ancestor of Baz. Let's get into the game itself. I mentioned the Nasanka sweep shot. Disappointing. He never really looked settled, I don't think, at any point through his brief innings. But Nathan Lyon, 4 balls into the attack, across his front pad, premeditated, clipped the top of leg. And that was the first real sign that this pitch could take big spin. So Kuhnemann was bowling flatter at the start, attacking the stumps on the angle around the wicket primarily, and that was working quite well. There was a 50-50 leg before, or to be precise, a 40-60 leg before that went Sri Lanka's way, and Australia kept their review but didn't get the overturn. But by the time Lyon was 2 or 3 overs in, it was pretty clear that he had it on a string. He's born to bowl in these conditions. Nathan Lyon today, his first 3 wickets were the first 3 of the game, and in turn went beyond 150 test wickets in Asia. Think about the journey that Nathan's had, not only in Sri Lanka but across this continent. The tough days in 2013 when he lost his spot before taking the big 7-wicket bag at Delhi. In 2016 here in Sri Lanka, crediting that really tough series being what turned it all around in this continent, having bowled so nicely in India in 17, having dominated in Bangladesh in 17, returning to Sri Lanka in 2022, doing such a fine job in the first test match, especially what he did in India the last time they were there a couple of years ago, and coming full circle to this ground where he made his test debut and took a 5 for 14 years ago on a pitch quite similar to this one, actually. It's a great story, and Lyon bringing up that milestone today, he continues to reinforce why they continue to need him, not only in Australia, not only in conditions where he's made an art form of holding up an end, but just as much, if not more, in Asia.
Best finger spinner ever, I think, for Australia for sure, and he's right up there in the top 2-3 the world has ever seen. I mean, you can put Ashwin up there and so many others, the great Vishen Singh Bedi, and whichever era you want to go through. But how can you debate against Nathan Lyon being in the top 2 greatest finger spinners ever? And I'm leaving Muralidharan out of this. I've always considered him a wrist spinner, wrist spinning off spinner. So, and he just keeps showing over and over again with the variety as he has and the understanding of these conditions as well, because all 3 wickets that you described were different. The first one came in his first over. He realized that, wow, I'm getting a lot of turn from those rough spots that Mitchell Starc, once again, about the pitch and why Connolly was played and why they think they need the extra batter, because Mitchell Starc bowled 5 overs his first spell. And there was a massive rough outside the right-hander's off stump. Lyon's couple in his first over, they spin past the batter and Alex Carey, gets his line right the 4th time. Nasanka plays a terrible shot and it hits top of leg stump. And then the way he set up Dimit Karnaratne, which at that point was batting beautifully, was using his feet, using the crease, rotating the strike, but he just held him, and then just slid one in right through his defence. I
was so into that. I was on TV for some of it, I think, from memory, and I got the Hawkeye graphics afterwards to sort of reinforce what I'd seen with the naked eye, which was that in the over before lunch, Lyon didn't get sucked into bowling the big looping off spinner. He pinned him back with 5 consecutive deliveries that went straight on with the arm. The type of ball that he struggled to bowl here in Sri Lanka in 2016, which is well documented and we discussed last week on the podcast. After lunch, did bowl the big looping off spinner, beat the outside edge, and then reverted to the ones that were going straight on, and it gathered pace off the pitch, hit leg stump, a superb piece of finger spin, a well-earned wicket, just when Karunaratne was building rhythm either side of lunch as well. So, I mean, Karunaratne had the ceremony before play today, his 100th test match, looked like he was up for the fight. He wasn't undone through anything other than a fine piece of Nathan Lyon art. And then in similar respect to the way that he got Matthews about 20 minutes later, Matthews could not get moving, 1 from 26, and it was the way that Lyon with that, it wasn't really about varying the way he was bowling, but varying the pace. He got up to 95 kilometres an hour in that over, and the wicket-taking delivery, a full 10 kilometres an hour slower than that. So again, it's demonstrating his resourcefulness, his big bag of tricks, how clever he has been, how confident he is in doing what he wants to do when he needs to do it, and that's why he was able to really get amongst them early on.
And just reverting from side spin to overspin when the ball wasn't doing a lot or as much as they expected,
Yep.
the way he varied that, it was masterful bowling. He could easily have ended up with many more wickets than he did today, but the first three were good enough. And look, yeah, like I said, I mean it's a treat to watch Nathan Lyon bowl. Leg spinners are exciting. Leg spinners get you off your seat. But with off spinners, you can just sit with your hand on your chin and just study them. It is that kind of art form, isn't it?
Yeah, and the leg spinner for Sri Lanka, poor old Jeffrey Vandersay, our fave from last week, was left out, but that's probably a conversation for when Sri Lanka are fielding at some stage tomorrow. So Lyon gets the first three, and then from there, Travis Head comes on and gets Kamindu. How often does Travis Head get on into the attack and take an important wicket? Kamindu right up there, extra spin, bit of overspin as well, caught the shoulder of the bat. Another record for Steve Smith, 196 and 197 test catches today, overtaking Ricky Ponting, so ever so close to 200 then ultimately. Rahul Dravid, who I believe is still the clubhouse leader, with 205, I want to say.
So. Not too far, yeah.
Yeah, mid to low, so not far away from Smith having that record as well, having passed 10,000 test runs last week. But Travis Head, we learnt from Steve Smith before the test match that he prefers to use him to Webster. Webster didn't bowl any overs other than 3 medium pace overs today, which and Connolly bowled a few as well, but they truly believe that Head is a partnership breaker, and that showed with Kamindu today.
Oh yes, and it wasn't the best first over from Travis Head, but we knew he was putting revs. He was, I think, hit for a 4 early on. He was struggling to get control, but then he landed the ball, which he needed to land perfectly. It was one of those perfect off breaks with a bit of overspin, like you said. Terrible shot from Kamindu Mendes, trying to open the face of his bat with slip, and it went straight to Steve Smith, almost hit him in the abdomen, but he hung on to it sharply as he does. And then Mitchell Starc struck in the next over, and I really want to talk about that Mitchell Starc spell, because it was vital. It was the 49th over, and we saw Starc and Cummins do this magically in Pakistan in less helpful conditions, but they just knew when to strike with reverse swing and how to do it. And you could see, and he was bowling into the breeze, so the breeze was going against him. So what he was trying to do is use the angle and then use that late tail with the breeze to take it away from the right-hander. And it took him 2 balls to get rid of Dhananjay De Silva. Again, a disappointing shot, yes, but it was sucked into playing that because of Stark's pace and also that late movement, and he hit it straight to Webster at a wide-ish gully. First ball he faced as well, and throughout that spell Mitchell Starc looked unplayable, and it took a lot of skill from both Chandimal and Kusal Mendes just before the lunch break to survive it, but the 2 old warriors really struck, and again, going back to just playing 3 specialist spinners, Kuhnemann did his job, but you needed the 2 wise heads to really put their hand up, and both Starc and Lyon did that.
Yeah, Kuhnemann and Lyon ended up bowling 30 overs apiece, and I agree with you. I was on comms for the Starc reverse swing spell, and he was immediately hiding the ball, and it's one thing to kind of telegraph your punch by hiding it. It's another thing to be able to pick it down the business end. He's so good at hiding what he's doing, and the wicket of Dhananjaya, it looks ugly, but it is a function again of Starc having such amazing control with the old ball, so that worked a treat. That partnership either side of tea was frustrating. It lasted a long time between Dinesh Chandimal and Kusal Mendes, but straight after tea, Kuhnemann gets another stumping, 3rd on the trip. Alex Carey whipping off the bails. Chandimal couldn't get his foot back in time. Batted so well for 74, but just a word for Kuhnemann, who sent down those 30 overs and finishes with 2 for 53. So efficient, effective, economical, just what Australia want with him, not only with the new ball, but bowling repeated spells.
I just asked Dan Vettori at the press conference about what difference he's seen with Matt Kuhnemann. Then the thing he said was going to Tasmania, taking that big call of moving state, becoming the premier spinner there for the Tasmanians in difficult conditions where the ball really doesn't turn much. But what he has learnt is better discipline. And he said he was bowling a lot of good deliveries in India as well in 2023, but as Dan Vettori said, he was they were loose enough balls for the Indian batters to get away. He's not doing that here at all. And while we credit Nathan Lyon for setting up these batters at the other end, I thought Kuhneman played a big role after lunch as well. Clearly, they'd had a chat during the break about how they wanted to approach conditions because the ball wasn't doing as much as they thought they would. So they went back to plan B or plan A plus, whatever you want to call it, of defending for a while and then using that defense to attack, if that makes sense. And the counter worked perfectly. Kuhneman did a job, and how good was Alex Carey behind the stumps?
Absolutely. And I think that they didn't snatch at it when Mendes and Mendes were batting together as well. They did quite a good job. Ramesh Mendes, who has got 10 first-class hundreds, a triple hundred, playing domestic cricket as well, so hardly a mug batting at 8, although his numbers have flattered to deceive when batting for Sri Lanka, but vaulted into the squad and into the 11. And he put on that 65 with Kusal Mendes, and it took Starc coming back with the second new ball. Fine piece of bowling, finding the edge almost right away. Carey in the game once more. Next ball, Prabhav Jayasuriya, who looks all at sea, batting at 9 or 8 or probably at 11 as well. He nicks him through to Smith, which was that record-breaking catch that I mentioned before. And it looks like for a moment there, Starc's going to finish it almost immediately. But just the way that Starc's able to influence test matches in this country, we said last week that he's the best visiting seamer ever in Sri Lanka. Well, I mean, his numbers in these contests are absurd. He takes his wickets at Sri Lanka as a seamer at 16. And that's not like flash in the pan. This is his third trip. Big sample size for the veteran. He's now taken, I think, 72 wickets in this World Test Championship cycle as well, only behind Cummins on 73 and Jasprit Bumrah on 77. I think that, well, I don't think that, I know that a lot of the time Starc, for various reasons, doesn't get the same plaudits as Cummins or indeed Hazelwood, but over a long stretch of time, he's only a few wickets away from Ian Botham's 383 as well. He's been an utter champion for Australia, not least in these conditions.
I mean, I think somebody needs to do a thesis on why Mitchell Starc doesn't get the kind of plaudits he should without constant reminders from different people. Right? It's like you have to like keep punching them in the head and saying, hey, hang on. Remember? We want to remind you that Mitchell Starc has these numbers in Sri Lanka. Whereas, you have batters come to these conditions, say Kevin Peterson or whoever from Matthew Hayden, or batters from the non-sub or outside the subcontinent come and dominate conditions, and they get treated like royalty. But here is a fast bowler, and today was a prime example of that. That pitch offered nothing to Mitchell Starc, and I don't think the Australian team management expected him to bowl as many overs as he did, and Dan Vittori admitted that as well. But he did in extremely difficult conditions. He had to go off the field earlier for cramp as well, and he just keeps producing the goods on different kinds of pitches. There have been some conditions he's played in Sri Lanka where the ball has swung in Colombo and Kandy, but in Galle, which is where Australia plays Sri Lanka these days, he just keeps coming up with the goods. I thought he bowled really well in the last test as well.
So it's 229 for 9 at the close of play. Let's take a break. On the way through to the ad, a reminder about Maurice Blackburn, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. I started seeding this yesterday. I'll have another crack at reading it off my phone because I haven't quite got it in my head yet. But Maurice Blackburn, we want more people to know about their super insurance because it can really help you and your family when you need it most. Injury, illness does not need to be work-related. It doesn't matter where or how you become injured or unwell. What matters is whether you are unable to work because of the injury or illness. The reality is that you could have suffered a stroke, been diagnosed with cancer, or developed mental illness. If it stops you from working, you may have a claim. Is making a claim difficult? Well, yes, in our experience, Maurice Blackburn's, when people make a claim themselves, they risk having it unfairly rejected or may not be able to access all of their entitlements, which is quite common. When everyday Aussies take on insurance companies, it can be stressful and intimidating. These companies have vast resources and make it hard for individuals to navigate the process on their own, which is why Maurice Blackburn, when they look after your claim, they know exactly what they need to do, and they help all of their clients get the maximum amount they're entitled to. It sounds complicated, especially if you're already unwell. However, that's why Maurice Blackburn are there. Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, there for working people since 1919. We'll keep talking about the insurance component of this throughout the course of the month of February. Back in a moment for the Hall of Fame. This is the Final Word Daily. Adam Collins, Bharat Sundaresan. Hey, we are nearing in on the Murali 800 patrons. Ooh. People have been answering the call, and that is bloody lovely. There's only one reason why people like you and I can do things like you and I like to do. independent media, calling it as we see it, doing the things we want to do over 250 times a year. Yet we have our commercial partners and we're ever so grateful for them, but that's a capricious world. That's a volatile world, commercial world and advertising and all the rest. What is the reason is our patrons. It's our crowdfunding. It's the fact that we've had a very loyal band of patrons with us for over 5 years now. If you've been listening to the pod for a long time or indeed a short time and you want us to keep being able to do what we do, help us meet Murali. Help us greet Murali on 800 patrons by the end of this week. It'll be a lovely thing to do. We're nearly there.
And that call from Pragya Noja is just waiting there.
Yes, we can guarantee it. Thanks to Baz. The Final Word Hall of Fame is our final word moment of the day. I suppose for me, I've just got to nominate the fact that it's ever so close to me seeing a hat trick again. My phone blows up. It was never going to happen because I was here, but you know, we'll keep an eye on these things. I've been to about 180 test matches. It might need to be about 580, as many as Shield Berry or Richie Beno, before I finally see 3 wickets in 3 balls.
And Nishant Paris is in back-to-back weeks is thwarted. He's aware of the collar curse clearly, and he's been the one who's kept it out. For me, I think it was the start of the day. Collar, 2 sets of parents. We had the Connolly parents on one end when Cooper was receiving his baggy green, and you know, Cooper was obviously being cool like most kids these days are at 21. But emotional moment for him. And Shane and Donna, his parents. And I saw on social media, apparently Shane was this wily left-arm swing bowler, very tough to face in first-grade turf competitions in Perth. And little Cooper used to sit when he was much younger and keep yelling at everyone, saying, "My dad's going to get you out." So
well, there's Donna as well, his mum, who, I hope this is true because I've said it on telly now, someone said it to me, was an acclaimed indoor cricketer as well.
Oh, there you go.
So pedigree there for Cooper Connolly. And the other parental moment today, Dimith Karunaratne's mum, Be Still My Beating Heart. Talk us through it.
I mean, I love all love. I love love, but there's maternal love and there's something special about it.
Yes.
Dimith Karunaratne playing his last test, about to play his last test, his 100th test. He's been doing this for 12 and a half years. And there he stood with his dad, with his partner, brother, and cousin or uncle, someone else, while he was being presented by, it was a special presentation before the test, and his mother just stood next to him, holding her little boy's arm, because he's still a little boy for her, and not letting go of that arm, like Andrew Fernando said, like he was on his first day at school, and she did not let go of his arm till the very end. It was so sweet. And then I put that out on Twitter, and someone actually sent me a photo, or it's on Twitter, just check it out, of a baby Dimith holding a bat and his mum right here at Galle watching a match, and she's just sat next to him. It must have been such a special moment for her. And you know, he can be 38, he might have moved to Melbourne, he might be just a 7th cricketer from Sri Lanka to play 100 tests, but he's still mama's little boy.
Make me miss my kids, Baz. Something like that. I'll see my girls when the test match is over. I think that's just about it. If you like the sunglasses I'm wearing, by the way, a lot of people have been asking about them throughout the summer. They are t20vision.com/final word. Link in the show notes. Get yourself your discount. They're the ones that Glenn Maxwell wears. And I wore the big fat ones when bowling in the 2 games.
You did.
The flare ones that Maxie designed himself, of course. In the games we played here, the media game, if you're wondering, we won it 9 wickets down with 2 balls to spare, and Baz played a role in that, which was fun. It was great fun. Right, that's it for us today. Thank you for watching. Join us on patreon.com/the final word to be part of that crew. Help us meet Murali by the time we finish here in Galle. Stumps, good night. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.